Hello and welcome to Just One More Watch, and welcome today to what is in effect my annual confession video. This is the fourth one of these that I've made now. I add up all of the watches that I purchased with my own hard-earned cash over the preceding 12 months, confess my sins to all of you, and then tell you where the watches are now. In 2021 and 2022, I bought an average of exactly one watch per week, but last year I felt I dropped the ball. I only bought 46 watches. This year, as you saw from the thumbnail and video title, I bought even fewer, a mere 40 watches. What happened? Well, that's the easy part of the video. On January the 19th this year, my wife and I bought a house in Sydney, and we have been grappling with an enormous mortgage since then. I have felt myself noticeably less inclined to spend money this year. I mean, 40 watches is still pretty good, but perhaps I haven't been splashing the cash like I used to because I simply haven't had the cash. Over the last few years, each year I've always managed to add one big purchase, one big watch into the collection, and I still managed to do that this year, but I bought it before we bought the house. That's how I managed it. So please forgive me if I've been a bit light on this year. It is probably for the best though. And please also forgive me if I have recommended a watch to you, you've bought it and then I've sold it. Don't be offended. I would already have gone bankrupt if I had kept everything that I bought over the last 8 years. And hey, 40 is probably still more watches than the average person buys or needs in a lifetime. So let's see what I bought and let's see where they are now. All right, I'm going to squeeze over a little bit as usual so I can show you the purchase number, the model name, and the review thumbnail if appropriate. My first purchase of the year then was the Casio DW5750E. Now this was a reissue of the very first round G-Shock from 1987. Pretty much the same as the 5600, the square G-Shock, but in a different shaped case. It was a nice enough watch, but I got a cheeky message not long after I put the review up from my friend Ashley in Melbourne asking if he could buy the watch, so it now resides in his enormous collection rather than in my enormous collection. Next up, it's the first Sunday roast of the year, and one of those rare, and I do mean very, very rare instances where I'm prepared to actually refer to myself as an influencer. That is such a dirty word, but in this case it's true because I influenced the brand to change the watch. Why? Because Seastern had made a one-for-one copy of a Nomos and then slapped the word original on the dial when clearly the watch was anything but. Now, they didn't contact me after the review, perhaps unsurprisingly, but they did issue a sort of statement on Instagram saying that they had changed the dial printing, replacing the word original with the word automatic. Just one more watch, changing the world, one Chinese homage at a time. I think I sold that one on Marketplace. Perhaps it's now actually worth $1 more than I paid for it, thanks to the story behind it. Next up was a Pagani, and I asked the question, have they finally made an original watch? My answer was yes. Some of you said no. Some of you thought there was a bit of Tissot in here, but regardless, it's an attractive 70s looking helmet case chronograph, good quality, all the right specs, typical Pagani pricing, and it was original enough for me anyway. And you know what? I've still got it. Moving on to the first Seiko of the year, and a watch that I still cannot quite understand why Seiko chose to call it the Deception. Of all the words in the English language, they chose that one. Anyway, it was an all-black version of their field watch, but with the addition of an NH34 movement, making it a GMT field watch. You know, I give Seiko a bit of a hard time sometimes, including later in this video, because I feel they could and probably should do better a lot of the time. But credit where it's due, at the right price, this was probably one of the best affordable releases of 2024. Didn't stop me selling it though. Next up then, it's my big watch purchase of the year, and I managed to squeeze it in exactly 1 month before we bought the house. It's my Grand Seiko SBGN011 9F GMT Quartz. I had been eyeing up one of these for years, literally years, and I added one to the collection in December 2023. I had tried it on numerous times in numerous Grand Seiko boutiques, and I just felt that this particular case with that Quartz GMT was the one for me. Plus, I wanted to add that 9F, the legendary 9F movement, into my collection. When I reviewed the watch, many naysayers amongst you said I would sell it. Have I sold it? No, I haven't. However, if I do ever invest in the future in a Grand Seiko spring drive, that one would probably get the chop, but until such time, it's a keeper. Beautiful finishing, fabulous handset. It doesn't quite get the same amount of wrist time that my Chronomaster does. That's still my number one, but the Grand Seiko fully deserves a place in my top watch box. What's next? Well, the first Citizen of the Year, and as you can tell from the thumbnail, I wasn't overly impressed with this one. I bought it used from Mr. P. Actually, I don't think he'd ever worn the thing. Now, I do kind of like it. It's big, it's chunky, and it feels bulletproof, but it is insanely complex to operate, and I don't actually think that the movement is working quite as it should. I tried to set an alarm, and it just didn't work at all, so I suspect there's a problem with the movement, but I just haven't been bothered trying to resolve that problem. I've still got it, but it hasn't exactly become a core part of my collection, put it that way. Alright, Seiko number 2, and you begin to see a recurring theme about these Seikos. A lot of the stuff I picked up this year from them has been PVD, or it has been from their Night series or something. This dark and stealthy chronograph was no different. It's the SSB 393P. I didn't pay a lot for it. I got it for a couple of $100 Aussie, which meant that I didn't lose too many dollars on it when I promptly sold it not long after the review. Pagani number 2, and one of the cheapest watches that I've reviewed all year at $35 US. For $35 US, this one offered a Seiko movement, sapphire crystal, and all stainless steel construction. A heady combination for well shy of a 50. Admittedly, the Seiko was a VH31, so it was a 4-tick quartz rather than an automatic, but if you have got a big and unruly collection like I have, quartz watches make a lot of sense as grab-and-go occasional wear pieces. Now, I kept the first Pagani, the chronograph, but I didn't keep this one. Again, I sold it on Facebook, probably for similar money to what I paid. Now, I have come up with some cruel and cutting thumbnails over the years, but this one is probably the harshest of all. I compared this Seiko to Sloth from the Goonies. This is the Speed Timer Panda SFG001P. And you know what? It was actually a little bit more attractive in the flesh than in the pictures, but that doesn't stop it appearing in retailers here in Australia for nearly 50% off the RRP, and it didn't stop me from flipping it in short order after the review. Alright, we're up to mid-March, we're up to watch number 10, and it's another AliExpress watch for you by Chamery. And I was still recording in the Blue Room back then. This was my first, admittedly failed attempt to get this studio in the new house working for me. In the end, I needed to get somebody in, I needed to get a consultant in who knew what they were doing to tell me how to fix the problems, resulting in a much more pleasant space than that one. Anyway, the watch had more than a whiff of Grand Seiko about it, but for $45 rather than for $4,500. It was pleasant enough, but it has since been liquidated and turned into more AliExpress watches, as you'll see later. The next watch I bought live from my local Costco in early April. I had been there for the first time in February and had been stunned by the sheer scale of the place and by the fact that you could buy everything from a Seiko to a precious metal Omega to a coffin. I posted that on my Instagram and it became my most popular Instagram post ever, so I thought, why not go back and buy a watch? But did I buy a $30,000 Omega? Of course not. This lovely man by the name of Carlos helped me to buy a $200 white G-Shock, but a few weeks later I decided I probably owned enough $200 G-Shocks, so I sold it. I had great fun though. I'd love to do more of those outdoor roaming videos in 2025, if I can persuade Mrs. Joma to film them for me, that is. And that random Instagram post ended up leading to me being featured in the Costco magazine in July this year. Sometimes I pinch myself that all of this madness came about as a result of a bet with my wife in 2016. Moving on to one of the best value AliExpress watches that I've encountered in recent years. It's an Addies dive, it has 1,000 meters of claimed water resistance, and it doesn't cost $100. It does, however, look and wear like a hockey puck, but then again, it does have 1,000 meters of claimed water resistance. I've still got it. If I ever go properly diving at one point in my future, this has got to be the pick, surely. Next up, another double banger in all senses. Two cracking AliExpress watches that I bought for $250 the pair. The first is a Sea Stern Doxa lookalike that is absolutely incredible quality for the just over $100 that I paid for it. I still got that one. The second was a Tsuyosa with a seagull movement for well under $150. Now I sold that one, somebody messaged me and asked me if they could buy it, and you know, who am I to refuse a friend in need of a new watch? Now, I review a lot of micro brands on the channel, and indeed I have been running my own micro brand alongside the channel for just over the last 12 months now. But most of the micros that are sent to me are sent by the brands themselves. I don't actually buy a lot of them, but I bought this one. It's by a new Australian micro brand called HZ or Hertz, who specialise in quartz only. This is their HZ01. It's made of titanium, it looks fantastic, and it did really well. I have since then, I've met the brand owner Matt a couple of times. He is a lovely man and he has some big plans. One of which is for a second watch coming out this weekend. You know what? I'm going to buy one of those as well. You can expect to see a review of it on the channel tomorrow. Now watch number 16 is the second Citizen on today's list. It is their excellent Tsuyosa small second. The Tsuyosa is a great watch. The small second version of it, arguably the greatest version of all the Tsuyosas. Just look at that dial and then remind yourself that it cost me only $350 equivalent to buy it, brand new with a 5-year Citizen warranty. However, somebody else is enjoying that particular warranty these days because I sold it. Like I said, I couldn't afford to buy a $500 watch each week, especially not this year, unless of course I had taken a $50 hit on the $500 watch that I bought the week before, which is pretty much how I do it. Alright, it's another double banger. I bought both of the Casio Manga G-Shocks straight from Japan as soon as they were released in May this year. This was a huge release for Casio, but it seems to have been a bit of a flash in the pan. I thought they were going to release more different colour versions of these ones, but they haven't, which is a shame because it's a lot of fun. It's one of these watches that looks hand-drawn because the lines and all the markings are intentionally indistinct and variable. It's probably not as striking as the D1 Milano Sketch that I looked at the month previous, but it's still a great watch. I mean, let's be honest, it's a Casio 2100, which is a great watch in the first place, plus Manga. How could it go wrong? Now, I sold the white one, but I kept the blue one. Another Seiko, and I felt the brand were being really lazy with this one. I mean, it's one thing re-releasing a watch from the 1960s and updating it and modernising it and so on, but it's quite another to re-release a watch from the 2010s, especially when all you actually do is increase the price. And so it was with the SRPK99, another slightly cynical reissue that somehow lacked the charm of the original. Next up, it is the biggest watch that I have bought in years. Indeed, I said in the video title that it was a $25 watch that was a massive bargain. Clearly, there was a dual meaning in there. It's the Casio MRW210H, the steroid-filled cousin of the MRW200H. And I'm not joking, it's 55 millimeters in diameter. It is absolutely enormous. It is a wrist clock. And you know what? I've still got it. It's still in a box around here somewhere, but I have no intention of ever wearing it. I'll be honest with you, I never actually did, even though I bought it. At number 21, it's a watch that gets a lot of hate from our normally so loving and generous community. It's the Tissot PRX Digital. Now, I picked one of these up for a ridiculous bargain. I think I paid 220 Aussie dollars for it when it was on some super mega flash sale from a local department store, and I knew that I had to have it at that price. Do you know what? It's actually rather nice. It's the smaller 35mm version, so it doesn't look nearly as dorky as the 40mm version does with all its dead space around the bezel. It's still not the best PRX, but I don't think it's the worst PRX either. But again, I got a message from somebody who had missed out on the deal asking if they could buy mine, so I sold it to them for the price that I bought it for. Another AliExpress double banger. I did actually spend quite a bit of money on the mid-year sale this year. I bought 4 watches for about $1,000 US. 4 rather unusual watches, I must admit, and these were the first 2. The first was a Tsuyosa Moonphase chronograph, and the second was the Agilosa with an in-house 80-hour movement. When you look at these two, either of these two under the macro lens, you see the quality. It's hard to reconcile how good these watches are considering how little you're paying for them, just about $200 each. I still have both of them in my collection, although to be honest, they might not be there forever. They might be sold to fuel my next round of AliExpress purchases. At number 24, it is yet another underwhelming Seiko, arguably the most underwhelming release by them this year. It's the Shogurai. The new samurai that had bits of the Shogun mixed in. But rather than combining the best elements of those two fantastic watches and somehow making them more than the sum of their parts, I felt that Seiko just released a melange, a kind of bit of a bland and homogeneous looking diver that lacked the soul of either of the watches that inspired it. And considering the original Samurai was a huge hit for Seiko, I've hardly seen anybody talking about this one, and I sold mine the week after I made the review. It's, surprise surprise, another AliExpress double banger. It's the other two watches that I picked up in the mid-year sale, and a video that I labelled as the weirdest double unboxing ever. No wonder, the first watch was a bullhead GMT, the first and still the only bullhead GMT that I have ever seen or ever heard of. The second watch is a star wheel. I think I paid about $200 each for them. I've still got both of them. I'll probably keep the star wheel. It's currently nestled in my AliExpress 10-piece collection box, but even I found the bullhead just a little bit too weird. At 27, it's another Citizen, and my thumbnail really does speak 1,000 words. I reckon Citizen's 2024 releases were far superior to Seiko's 2024 releases, and I don't think I'm alone in that. The Forza chronograph is just epic for the modest fee they were asking, and you get top-notch quality control from Citizen, which is not something you can always say about Seiko. Having said that, the Chronomaster is still my favourite Citizen, so I sold the Forza to somebody else called Jody. Now that doesn't happen very often. Okay, enough Seiko bashing. Next up is a cracker of a watch from the Japanese powerhouse, named after an Austrian powerhouse. It's the Seiko Arnie. Specifically, I bought a Blue Lagoon Arnie. Now I got it at a super hot price. I've worn it quite a bit. I've still got it. This year I've organised my collection more specifically, more stringently into boxes than in previous years. I've got about 8 to 10 Seikos. The Arnie is currently hanging out in that box and I can't see it moving anytime soon. Next up, it's another JDM Casio and the first Oceanus that I bought in a couple of years actually. Amazing watches, fantastic value for money, but that bloody Citizen Chronomaster has a lot to answer for because I sold all of my Oceanus when it arrived in 2022. This S400 is a new model from them and it has the quality that you come to expect from everything else in their range. But the price, unfortunately, I felt this one was just a bit too expensive. I felt it was about 20% too expensive, about $200 more than it should have been. Still a great watch, but their cheaper offerings are 95% as good for half of the money. I did hang on to it for a while, but I actually sold it last week, and I sold it for the price that I think Casio should be selling it for, rather than the price they actually are selling it for. Alright, at 30 and 31, it's the first time you've heard me mention this brand this year so far. It's Timex, and I made up for lost time by picking up 4 of them at the same time. 2 of them were sent to me by a local supplier, Watch Direct. 2 of them I bought for myself, those being the Explorer and the Iron Man. Now the Explorer is still lurking in a box somewhere, waiting patiently for the review that I promised it. The Iron Man, I did use that one. I compared it directly to the classic square G-Shock in a head-to-head, and then I sold it to a friend. At number 32 is a watch I bought by accident. Or should I say it's a watch brand that I bought by accident because it's a watch brand that I swore I would never buy due to the brand name being Tandorio. Just too close to tandoori, my favourite curry for my liking. Anyway, the watch was very good value for money and I still have it. I've also still got watch number 33 as well, the colourful new Casio Aquaterra. These are really nice watches, they look great, they've got a beautiful case shape, and if you can find one at a decent price, they make a great value daily wear proposition. There are a couple of compromises though, the biggest of which is the mineral crystal, and I actually hung on to this one, unlike the last one, with the intention of doing a sapphire swap on it one day. It hasn't happened yet, but it might happen at some point. Moving on to the third stealthy Seiko on the list today, after the Deception and the Carbon Chrono. In early October, I picked up a Seiko speed timer on a catch and release, and I must say, it's really rather good. It's the larger of the two, the 41 point something, but it looks great with the black case, black dial, black pushers, black strap, and those green hands and indices. The legibility as a consequence is fantastic, both during the day and after dark. I've still got it, and you can expect to see it in the Seiko box next to the Arnie in my State of the Collection video in a couple of weeks' time. Alright, we're almost at the end of the list today, but there are still 6 watches I believe to discuss, the first of which made me feel a little bit dirty. With homages, lookalikes, whatever you want to call them, I have no problem buying and recommending copies of watches that for a lot of people are unattainable because of their price tag. But I don't see the point, and I never have, of buying a $50 copy of a $100 watch, and yet for some reason that's exactly what I did, and I regretted it. More specifically, my bracelet resizing tools regretted it, because this Berny broke not 1, not 2, but 3 of them, and in the end I had to remove the push pins in the bracelet with the aid of a rusty hammer. Now, there were several people upset with me in the comment section saying I got it all wrong and that the Berny was fantastic, but tell that to my spring bar removal tools. I still got it, I'm too ashamed to sell it. Next up, it's a watch that I bought on a recent trip to New York City. It's a Brew Metric. Brew are a New York brand, and I bought it directly from the brand owner at the Wind Up Watch Fair that Stephen and I attended in our capacity as EREBUS watches. I wanted a memento of my trip, and I don't think I could have got a better one. It's a cracking watch, and in many ways it represents everything that's good about the micro space. It's quirky, it's fun, it's affordable, it's a keeper. We are almost at the end, but there's still time for a triple banger. 3 AliExpress watches, my haul from the 11/11 sale, and a video from the middle of last week. It was actually refreshing to get back to basics on AliExpress and buy some watches around that $50 price point after buying all the weird stuff in the middle of the year. If you're wondering, I've still got all 3. Give me a chance. I only opened the boxes on Tuesday. And finally, at number 40, there is one watch that I bought this year, but I didn't review because I had already reviewed it. It's the Casio LF20. This specific Casio LF20. I actually looked at this watch a couple of years ago when they come out, and I said I would buy one when they hit a reasonable price point. Now, they launched at 99 Australian dollars. They're now available for about half that, so I bought one mid-year. But it was feeling all upset about not having a video made about it, so there you are, little Casio. Don't feel sad anymore. You got your moment in the sunshine after all. So there you have it, 40 watches. Perhaps not quite the consistent craziness of 2021 and 2022, but still more watches than most people will buy in a lifetime. What was your favourite? What was your least favourite? And what did you buy this year? Or did you, like me, have a change of financial circumstances in 2024 and a similar tightening of your belt? Leave me a comment, let me know. If you want to see the 104 watches that I bought in those 2 previous years, click here and then click here. Thanks for watching this one. I will see you again in the next one.